two introductory comments. The first thing is that 70 years ago, Congress established the unemployment insurance program to help a vulnerable group in society. The program had an added advantage in that it could also be an automatic stimulus for the economy in the event of a downturn like we may be facing now. Currently, the unemployment insurance program in this country is no longer automatic, and it no longer provides enough stimulus to the economy. Okay? It is no longer automatic and no longer provides stimulus. This is because the triggers that were put in place to automatically expand unemployment insurance are broken because of changes in the labor market over time, and those triggers have not kept up. Only 1/3 of unemployed people receive unemployment insurance, and if they are lucky enough to do that, they receive less than the poverty rate. It's about 1/2 of average wages, or even less than 1/2 of average wages in the economy. So the system, basically, it does help those that are still getting unemployment insurance, but it is no longer fulfilling that second role of being an automatic stabilizer. That is why, in an hour from now, the Finance Committee is going to start talking about extending UI. And unfortunately, it would be much better if they fixed the program than discretionarily just extend it every time we run into a problem. But we can never get to that point. We need to fix the triggers, and we need to expand eligibility of the unemployment insurance program. Now, I'm going to come back to this in a minute, but let me just show you some state numbers that I've been working with. There are 8 states plus the District of Colombia that currently have unemployment rates that are 15% or above the national average. By the way, a piece that Lori Kletzer and I did a year ago suggested reducing the trigger to 6%. That means that 6 of those states would already be receiving unemployment insurance extension and not have to wait for a congressional extension. There are 9 states that have an average duration of unemployment that is 15% or above the national average. And there are 7 states plus the District of Columbia that have an exhaustion rate. That is the share of people that can no longer have exhausted their unemployment insurance, again, that is 15% above the national average. So, and many of these states do not overlap. So there's about half the states in the country already that are facing some severe labor market problems. And unfortunately, when Congress comes in to do something about it, it's usually a little too late and too little. So we really do need to get back to the basics of this program and do something about it. Now, interestingly enough, trade adjustment assistance is also an automatic stabilizer. And in some sense, it's better suited currently to play that role because it already provides up to 2 years of unemployment insurance if you were enrolled in training. Again, if we were to expand eligibility, more people would come into the program. But that program already fits that mold. So it will be no accident to me, and I hope also to you, no surprise, I'm sorry, if Congress considers reauthorizing trade adjustment assistance as part of the stabilization package, because it is quite logical to do that. Now, the second introductory comment I'd like to make is that Fred and the Institute, there's always have been commented on that we have impeccable timing here at the Institute. This is actually a historic week for trade adjustment assistance. 46 years ago, last Friday, on January 25th, 1962, in a letter to Congress, John F. Kennedy raised the idea of trade adjustment assistance. And it was because of his actions that Congress established the program as part of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. Subsequent to those comments, every Republican administration, except the current one, but every Republican administration called for abolishing the program. This administration did not follow suit, fully funded the program every year of its 7 years, and Monday night, 46 years after John F. Kennedy called for the establishment of this program, Monday night, President Bush put TAA in the State of the Union address, making it one of his top priorities, one of his top domestic priorities. It's incredible if I'm a student of the program for 30 years. It's incredible if you follow the program have gone from there to being part of the State of the Union address. Now, I would be naive to suggest that the reason it was in that State of the Union address is because we have won the war and everyone sees the value of trade adjustment assistance. Obviously, it was brought there because of its linkage to trade policy. And to those people who have yet to understand, trade policy is in a lot of trouble in this town. And that's why there's now been this attention given to trade adjustment assistance. So if anyone has missed that message, I hope they got that Monday night. Now, what is the objective here that we've been talking about? We've got this new group of workers who are sitting on the front line of globalization. What can we do to help them? Well, it would be nice if we in the United States had strong general unemployment insurance programs. But as I've already suggested to you, it's basically a lottery if you can get unemployment insurance. And even if you get it, it's below the poverty rate. So we have decided, we as a people have decided not to put a lot of resources into unemployment insurance. The result has been that we do a bunch of carve-outs. So that whenever a certain group of people come by that need some special attention, if it be people that are going to be hurt by the Clean Air Act, people that are going to be hurt by the spotted owl protection, people that are going to be hurt by the protection of the redwood trees, people that are going to be hurt by, or were hurt by September 11th, people that were hurt by the Katrina hurricane. I'm giving you examples of real programs that have been developed over time for these special workers, only because our general system is broken. And we will continue probably along that road. There's now discussion of a new program for workers that lose their jobs because of carbon dioxide and trying to save the economy. And this is a serious conversation that's going on now. What can we do for those workers? So we have made an explicit decision in this country to only really help those workers that have a voice. So now we come to this group of workers, these services workers. What is their voice? Their voice is that we have evidence that globalization, outsourcing, is beneficial to the economy. And if we want to pursue that globalization, that liberalization, and continue, we'll feel that there's going to be an obligation to take care of those people that are hurt by that same liberalization. Exactly what the President mentioned on Monday night. So there's the motivation to help these workers. So when people ask, why don't we help them through the general programs? One, because those programs are broken. And second, because we want to maintain the globalization and the liberalization that is associated with those workers. But we also have to remove the discrimination. That's another reason. And I want to give you, instead of speaking theoretically, one specific example. Most of you in this room will probably know Baker Furniture, very famous producer of furniture. Baker Furniture was in Michigan. The plant actually closed, moved to North Carolina because of a reorganization. But the company expanded and set up a trucking part of the company because they were going to deliver the furniture. Well, the furniture company is in North Carolina, gets hit by imports, so the production workers lose their jobs. They apply to the Labor Department to get trade adjustment assistance. They get it, but the truckers don't. Part of the same company, right? They were delivering the furniture. They lost their jobs. The Department of Labor rejected them. So there's an example of the kind of discrimination that we're currently seeing. Now, there's also discrimination on the outsourcing side of services, but this one I bring because it's so clear-cut. And so one of the reasons for expanding TIA for services would be to remove this discrimination. What would be the means of helping these workers? Well, we already have a program in place, which is called Trade Adjustment Assistance. This is what the program provides workers. Up to 78 or a year and a half of unemployment insurance beyond their initial 26 weeks if they are enrolled in training. The government finances the training. As you heard the senator speak, there is currently a 65% health coverage tax credit. Then there is wage insurance. This is, I personally think it's the most unappreciated thing going on right now in Washington. This is on the cutting edge of labor market policy. Under wage insurance, if a person loses their job and takes a new job that pays less than their old job, the government will rebate them up to 50% of the difference for up to 2 years These is currently for workers under the age of 50 making less than $50,000. Why do I say that this is such an important part? Because most of our programs right now, our labor market programs, basically, and I don't want to be misunderstood here, but basically compensate people for being unemployed. Transfers funds to them, gives them training. This program is directly linked to reemployment. In fact, I'll say it's the only labor market intervention that we have right on the books right now that is linked and encourages people for reemployment. Now, as you heard the senator say, there is some interest in trying to expand that program. Let me just say that the people that I speak to that have been on this program, that are taking advantage of it, everyone says that this was really very helpful to them. It did not force them to take a cheap job, but once they did go back to work, it really did help close the gap. And remember, in this country, when you go back to work, you get health care, you get pension, you get other benefits. So really, there's kind of like a two-win situation. There's job search assistance and relocation assistance that's also available to workers. What is the legislative agenda? Again, you've heard from Senator Baucus. The first thing is that the program, unfortunately, its authorization was let to lapse at the end of December because of some congressional maneuvering. That really puts the program at a risk right now because it has no authorization. And so Congress really must act this year before it leaves in September to reauthorize the program at a minimum. And that's why I said there may be some possibility that might be included in some kind of a stimulus package. There's no cost associated with that reauthorization because the program has been fully appropriated. This has nothing to do with cost. It is only, if you will, kind of a legal issue. The program reforms, number one, would be to expand eligibility to cover training workers, service workers. You've been hearing this over and over. Increase the health coverage tax credit, currently at 65%, increase it maybe to 85% or somewhere around there. Expand wage insurance. As I mentioned, currently it's only for people over the age of 50. Maybe you bring that down to 40. Maybe you expand the the wage limit. Increase training funds. This is a serious problem. Inadequacy of training funds for workers. But this will seriously be a problem if we are able to achieve expanding coverage for service workers, because that will increase the pool. And so, of course, they'll need more training money for those people. And then, of course, there's some technical issues that need to be addressed. I don't really want to go into it. Now, I want to do this because I think I want to answer the criticisms before and give people a little time to think about it. What are the two concerns that have already been voiced? The first one is, how do we accurately target that population? As you just heard from Alan and Brad, I mean, here are some of the smartest economists in the country trying to deal with this problem, and even they can't come down with very specific numbers. Okay? And by the way, I mean, their numbers are global numbers. We don't even know how these split up every year or anything like that, right? So it is very difficult to see how we can really target the programs so that we can cover these workers. Well, three attempts have been put into the legislation. The first thing is at least to change the language so that it says goods and services. Currently it says that workers have to be producing a product, a good. So if we change the language from goods and services, that would have taken care of my truck people in Baker Furniture. Okay, that's why they got denied. By the way, 50% of the deniers at the Labor Department these days are due to this problem, to the service worker. So that would probably take care of that. But it might not really help us with some of these offshore problems, because the way the program is currently written is we have to show import penetration or some kind of increased competition. We don't have data on the importation of services, so it will be very difficult to prove that. So the second idea that's in the legislation is what I call the 20% rule, which is that if a company produces service that is an input into a final goods or services company, and they are 20%, or at least 20% of their sales is connected to that host company, then workers from that company would be covered. So, for example, that's a long way to explain it. Let's say you're the accountant firm, and more than 20% of your business is doing business with P&G, if you will. You're an outside accounting firm. Therefore, maybe I shouldn't use this example, if P&G decides to get their accounting from overseas, then the workers in that accounting company would get would be eligible for trade adjustment assistance if they met that 20% rule. Okay? And the last one, which is the one that is getting the most attention, is what's called industry and occupation certification. This seems to me to be the most, the easiest, just aesthetic way of doing it, which is that you identify industries, be they Alan's Industries or Brad's Industries or some combination of both, and say, or an occupation, and say if anyone from that industry loses their job, then they can automatically apply for TAA. That would be another way to do it. And then this way, also, not only would it cover these people, but it would really tremendously reduce the bureaucratic problems that the Labor Department faces in trying to parse out who is eligible and who is not. This would be a very easy way to just say, if you are in personal services and you lose your job, then you would be eligible for TA. Now, of course, the administration has put its veto threat put down its veto threat, and this is one of the major issues it raises. It fears that it would open the door too much. Now, what's the second argument against? The second argument is cost, of course. First of all, what I did in preparing this and thinking about this issue is I went back to the cost estimates in 2002. It's been said today that in 2002, we did these changes. They were the most radical changes in the program since 1962, and basically doubled the size of the program. So they were really a big deal. Went back and looked at the cost estimates that CBO made then, and I don't mean this in any criticism. This is all done in an analytical fashion. Their cost estimates are 50% off of where we are today. And the reason they are off so much is because it is impossible to estimate how many workers are going to be losing their jobs and how many of them are going to be, in this case, within the trade community. So if you get that number wrong, you're going to get your numbers, you're going to get your budget numbers wrong. And then you ask the question, how do you come up with those numbers? So this actually raises the question to me, does anyone ever go back and look at the CBO numbers? Because see, CBO numbers are very important because we had to find offsets. So what we ended up doing, too, is we found offsets for that red line, and it only cost the blue line. And we could have saved a lot of money in terms of offsets. Well, what I've done is I've taken the CBO estimates of the House bill, which is a little different than the Senate bill. Again, this has gotten some attention because their bottom line is $8.3 billion over 10 years. So everyone walks around and says, oh, we can't spend $8 billion for TAA. First of all, it's over 10 years. Now what I've done is I've broken it down by the specific parts, if you will, kind of made a menu that you can pick and choose and say, we want to cover service workers. Well, excuse me for saying it, that's only $200 million a year in a program that's currently running at about $800 million a year. So it's really a very small part of the total cost. $2 billion over 10 years. You want to do the automatic certification as I just raised, that's only $20 million a year, estimated because the GAO says we're already covering most of those people. Because what you're going to get is you're going to get a lot of manufacturing, you'll get steel and autos and textiles, and those kinds of things. Raising the training cap is costly. It's $160 million because we've got to correct the current situation and cover some of the new workers. The House included extending UI payments by yet another 26 weeks. That's $100 million or $1 billion over 10 years. That's not in the Senate bill, so that would bring down the costs already even more so. Raising the health coverage tax credit, CBO, I think, was very generous in their estimates, thinking that as soon as it goes up to 85%, everyone's going to come rushing in the door. Right now, we've got about 10,000 people out of a universe of about 100,000. Actually, the head of the program is sitting in the room. Is that okay? Is that fair? 10,000 out of 100,000 about that are currently taking the program. So I don't know how we would estimate if you raise it to 85%, then what that would really do to the, but CBO scores it at $100 million a year, quite expensive. Wage insurance at $70 million. I can tell you that right now only 6,000 people are taking wage insurance. And by the way, you've got to be employed in order to take advantage of wage insurance. So some of these numbers may be a little bit high, And some of these programs, some of these aspects may not be in the final product. So I would caution before we start running with total cost numbers that we disaggregate it and look at the specifics. Bottom line. Number one, we need to reauthorize trade adjustment assistance. This has become now the number one. And in fact, what's really great was that the president didn't just say we need to have a strong TAA. He actually used the term reauthorize and reform trade adjustment assistance. So the White House understands the reauthorization problem. Second, we need to extend eligibility for service workers. Third, to expand the health coverage tax credit and wage insurance so that more people can take advantage of it. Fix the training funding because this really is a serious problem. Thank you very much.